You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by footballstadiumprints.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped!
Yes!
And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot is goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot.
Goal!
And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis
yes!
City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
Welcome to your home for dominating possession, creating chances, and finishing just two of them. This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City SC. I am Nate, joined as always by the road warrior himself, still craving that team bus travel experience. It's John Bisworm.
Very clever retort there, Nate. I appreciate that. But yeah, dude, what a stretch of games. We had heartbreak on the road, a hard-fought Super Cup match, a late winner to bring us right back to life, and then a worldie that took the air completely out of the sails. And we thought we had a really nice cup win, which we'll definitely get into detail on that. But man, it's been a lot. It's a lot has happened.
A lot of games. And John, we've been trying to fit in a show like all week. And of course, life gets in the way with so much soccer to watch, of course, family obligations and, community. And you were helping out your neighbors just the other night and we couldn't record. So I want to say that, to all of our friends here in Minnesota and elsewhere that, recording tonight is tough. This has been a tough day, an emotional weekend, but, we're okay. And I'm hoping that this podcast is going to help maybe add some normalcy to the day at the end of the day and offer up a little bit of a fun distraction for us.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a really good way to put it, Nate. I'm doing this show from my garage right now, which is interesting.
Speaking of normalcy,
I sound a little echoey. I apologize.
Yeah.
But tonight we got a full slate. We will start with the frustrating road loss to Sueño FC, cover the Minnesota Super Cup match against Minnesota United's MLS Next squad, and then bring down that gritty win against Chicago City Dutch Lions. That was a really good one. Really excited to talk about that one. And as always, we'll look ahead to some familiar faces that came into Edor Nelson Field just last night in the St. Paul Blackhawks. And to the top dogs of the Heartland Conference, we play Rochester FC on Father's Day, which is in 15 minutes.
Yeah, so let's start on the road, John. Sueño FC. Last Friday, right? June 6th?
June something.
Yep. We poured it on, and whatever metric you looked at, whether it's possession, corners, set pieces, it was probably one of our best performances of the season. And yet, we bust away 3-2 losers, empty-handed in points against Sueño FC.
It's that crucial part of soccer, right? You can dominate completely across the board. Like if you start with possession, and then you move to shots, and then you move to shots against, you can dominate all that and just boss a game from box to box and still end up on the wrong side of results. I have plenty to say about this one because I took the bus with the boys on that Friday. Was it a week ago Friday?
Yeah.
And so I have plenty to add there. But as far as who traveled for the Crows besides me and the coaching staff, in goal you had goalkeeper Nolan Meyer. Across the back line was kind of a little bit of an unchanged back three of Cole Schrage, Nick Kent, and Big Curtis Wagner. In the midfield, you had kind of that new look triangle that we're really excited about, which was Jake Swellen, Ian Shaw, and Jackson Kirsch. And then your wingers were Morgan Olson and Shea Bechtel, with your forwards being Preston Kipnusu and Joe Highfield. And then busting on the bench was Daniel Sessler, Hecken Leibel, Ms. Harris, Tomas Mena, Jeffrey Richter, Elijah Fearing, Andrew Holmes, Scotty Heinen popping up there, and then Adam Senna.
This is kind of the optimal roster for City this summer, isn't it, John?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I don't know, depending upon who's the hot hand in net, you might make a change there. But yeah, I think it's pretty optimal.
Yeah. Well, City were chasing this one from the start. Not what you want, but really kind of easy to find yourself in that position when you're on the road. Sueño's Easton Bogard carved through the center of City's defense and opened the scoring in the 6th minute. But Morgan Olsen, who was super important down the stretch late last year, notched his first goal this season shortly afterwards, curling a shot off the far post and in to level the game in the 24th minute, and felt pretty good.
Yeah, counters were the death of us in that one. Sitting on touchline, Nate, a counter led to a foul and Sueño free kick just outside the penalty area, which they converted to give Sueño their second lead of the evening. And it was definitely like a story of like bad bounces. Like to start that play was Jake Swollen completely coming in from a deep lying center midfield position, going to bust up like a little like kind of ticky tack flick from the Sueño center midfielder to his partner, and it just bounced off of his thigh right into the pathway of a striker. And then we ultimately go down the field, have to have a tactical foul. They bury it, and then it's just like, are you kidding me? Like we had a 5-6 pass combo, and then that happened, and then we're down 2-1. So it was just kind of like that stuff was happening throughout the whole entire game. I will say this though, there's a couple things about the trip. One, the turf was black, and it was about 15 yards narrower than Edor Nelson Field, which was really interesting. And the lines for soccer were gray, like a light gray on black, and then you had the white football lines. So when we initially pulled up, I was like, hang on a second, like
the
where's
grass was black?
I can't even see it. So there was that. Then they had no ball kids, and they only had 3 soccer balls. So that was cool. So
that'll help with the tempo.
I mean, it's so funny to know who Justin Oliver is and then sit and watch him coach, because he was absolutely livid to the point where he was screaming at the 4th official that he was going to start his own stopwatch every time a ball went out of bounds, because they needed to add that much more time back on, because in his words, this is a total clown show, which I thought was hilarious. So that's like how we kind of started it off. And then it was like MVB and I were ball chasing. Like I went over to the other side of the field and was getting the ball. Because we were trying to hunt goals, and it was really hard because they would just kick the ball out of bounds. And then like Curtis Wagner's our big throw specialist. He'd have to go and like chase a ball down, like run across the field, chase it down,
run across the street.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was completely a mess. But that same guy who scored the first goal would double the lead with a back post header at halftime, and it really gave City a tough assignment with 30 minutes left. Kipnusu answered quickly for his 3rd of the year, thanks to a really nice ball from Ms. Harris. Really good individual play on the sideline there. I'll give myself props. I hunted that ball down, so Ms. get the ball in really quick. So I'll take the hockey assist on that one.
Yeah.
But we just could not find the equalizer. And if I'm kind of spreading final thoughts over this one, the Sueño experience completely sucks. I was really disappointed with like minimum standards not really being met. We're not even going to talk about the fact that the shower facility that the players were asked to use was a truck stop 5 minutes away.
No, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right there, 3 soccer balls. We had to start the game late because there was a hole in the net, and then the referees said they told Sueño about it, but they didn't fix it. It was really funny because MVB got off the bench in a huff and rifles through his bag and grabbed some zip ties and just went over and like tried to figure it out. So there's that. But here's the thing, Nate, and you'll see this when Sueño comes to visit us. They have extremely talented soccer players. Like individually, you had guys, Wisconsin, Indiana, Louisville, Michigan State, I believe. Their goalkeeper was fantastic. Like they have what you might expect out of like a broke ass Des Moines Menace is the best way I could describe it. And I was talking with one of their captain who as we were waiting for our bus, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. I was talking to their captain. I was like, why do you play here? And I'm not being rude. I'm just asking the question. Like, why did you choose to play for Sueño? And he's like, well, this is what I know. And I'm like, there's like all these things that added up to being frustration points. I said, does that not frustrate you? And he's like, I get to play with my buddies. And I'm thinking like, this is what we have to compete against. And like, they were extremely talented, and you'll see it when they come visit us.
Man, that's a different story than like other times when you and I have been on the road, and like players from Med City have come up to you in the bathroom and been like, so Are you guys recruiting or?
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at with this guy. I was like, wait till you see what the other side looks like. Play in front of fans. Like there were maybe 8 people there, and I think 4 of them were Stroggies. So, and Paul and his wife were there. Like it was a real weird situation. And I was kind of like alluding to the guy, like, you could play somewhere better and it would be way more fun. And maybe you bring your buddies if that's what you want to do.
Well, I mean, if you just watch the stream like I did, it felt like the whole game was a lesson in like finishing, decision making, like so much luck went into it. Like you said, like 5-6 passes, really nice chances created, and then like get stung on the counter, right? So, and even when like the coach, when Jo says that we played our best game of the year and still don't come away with at least a point, that really hurts. That really hurts. But what hurt probably more was the trip home, huh?
Yeah. So what happened was the bus dropped us off to start the game. Oh, locker rooms weren't open for us when we got there either.
Oh, hold on. So before we get into the bus story, I just want to point out that in between when we wrote this script hoping to record a couple days ago and now, you and I also, like, the way you're describing the game day experience and the fact that like minimum league standards weren't met, that's so crazy to me because we have since found out that RKC gave up 3 points. Like they beat
Dutch Lions.
The Dutch Lions at home 4-1 or something like that.
3 or 4-1, yeah.
Yeah. And in the end had to forfeit because they didn't have a trainer on premise, right? So Dutch Lions actually have their first 3 points of the season and the first 3 points in whatever it is, 15, 16 months because of that. But the fact that like the USL2 is actually looking at this stuff, I'm not saying that we should complain and like just to get 3 points out of it, but like team, you gotta up your game. Like a fucking truck stop for a shower facility is not the way to go.
And I'll add to that point here in a second. But the way I described it to MVB was if Lacrosse Heiress and the Des Moines Menace had a baby, that was where we played. 100%. So to go back to what actually happens, the bus drops us off and we get there, field's weird, it's narrow, no locker rooms open yet, that kind of stuff. The bus then leaves, the 2 bus drivers leave to go get food, and the bus broke down, leaving the parking lot of the high school. So we were waiting for the bus to pick us up, and we're like, where's the bus? MVB calls, they're like, and then I can see his face just like turn from like angry to pissed off. And so we had to walk across this high school campus to find our bus, which they had called a technician. But as soon as the bus, they wouldn't start, they sent another bus from Minneapolis. So we had a bus in like Eau Claire waiting to come get us. And it's already 9:00 at night. So you're like, this is going to be awful. So luckily, me being from Wisconsin, I brought beer. We were basically, the coaching staff and I and a few of the overage players were sitting in a high school parking lot drinking beers while the technician and the bus drivers were trying to figure out what was going on. Ultimately, found out what was going on. This is a fun fact. So coach buses, we had a fuel gauge problem. The fuel gauge had some sort of electrical problem where it basically like tripped a short in a fuse, and the bus goes into what they described to me was a turtle shell, and it shuts off because it doesn't want you to drive without an operating fuel gauge. So they had to go through hook up to a computer and cycle through all of these codes for like 2 hours. The bus starts to work, and then it's like 11:45 p.m. and we have a 6.5-hour bus ride home.
Yeah.
So that was what happened after everything else that happened. And then you try to sleep on a coach bus. I mean, I'm 44 years old. That was a goddamn nightmare for me.
Yep.
But then you have these players that maybe featured for a cameo appearance or didn't feature at all that were going to be playing the next day against Minnesota United's MLS Next team in the Super Cup. So that's basically the full story, full stop, Nate.
That's exactly what I was thinking is how much that would suck. Because the guys who didn't play a ton on Friday in Chicago were probably slated to get big minutes on Saturday in the opening round of the Super Cup, right?
Played 10 solid, meaningful minutes against Sueño and then had to go the full 90 after like getting home at 7 a.m.
So like, look at all these guys that rolled in at 7 a.m. Let's go through the roster that started on Saturday for the opening round of the the Minnesota Super Cup. You had in goal, number 3, you had Jack Roach, who is fresh. And then defender, Jonah Garcia, fresh. The other 2 defenders were Jeff Richter and Adam Senna, who were on the bus. Your midfielders were Andrew Holmes, Scotty Heinen, Misael Harris, and Andrew Heckenlabel, all on the bus.
Was fresh. He didn't travel.
Yep. Who didn't? Heckenlabel? Okay. And then Undi Mena, fresh, right? So, and then, like you said, Tomas Mena. And then you get Jared Hecht, who had to also play almost a full 90.
Who's not full 90 fit right now.
No.
So there's that.
Nope. Yep. And then on the bench, guys that traveled. And then you pulled up some guys from the Futures and some guys that were hoping to get some more minutes. Daniel Sessler, Otis Anderson, Ronan Selbo, which was a nice debut. Elijah Fearing, he was on the bus. Morgan Olson, Shea Bechtel, Joe Highfield. These are all guys that travel. So that you got to assume that fatigue is going to be a huge factor.
It was a major factor, honestly, and I don't want to make excuses. I calling the game in the booth, I was fatigued. And I didn't have to run around for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, not only that, but then we're going up against a team that in Minnesota United who trains year round together and
finishing their season, or we're just starting ours.
Yeah, and so there's reason to be worried as you go into the game, and I think that showed. Like, we were a little lucky for the scoreline to be 0-0 throughout the first half. Like, I think you're playing Misael Harris out of position at the center attacking midfielder role, right? Andrew Holmes looking sluggish coming off the bus all night, and the speedy little loons, they were really doing a good job foiling our midfield and getting chances to run directly at our center backs. Is that what you saw the Loons doing to frustrate what I would say is a more experienced Minneapolis City team?
I would say so. I think they were definitely set up in a defensive shell and then that led to being very calm and patient with the ball, and then hitting quick on the counter to their danger man, Leo Kona, who we've played against. He played at Joy. He played with Minnesota United last year or 2 years ago. He played with St. Croix last year. So, like, we've played against him before, and like, he is dangerous. And Jonah had to try to track him, like, step for step. And that's not Jonah Garcia's game, right? Like, balls over the top have never been Jonah's strength. So, like, they knew that immediately and then just started to wane on the calm possession soccer and really started to hit those direct balls to Kona over the top.
Yeah, and he opened the scoring early in the second half. He found lots of time and space, right in the middle of the field, and he ripped a shot past Roach. But, John, I'll say for the next 40-plus minutes after that, the changes that the coaches made had the Loons on the back foot. And I think if it weren't for their keeper playing absolutely out of his mind, we would have had 3 second-half goals easily. I mean, how many point-blank chances did this guy turn away?
I think I took a note. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I took a note. I think he had 6 chances that we probably should have converted. I mean, that right there is 3 points if we even convert half of those chances. Obviously just one of those chances. But I was like, what do we have to do to not face a goalkeeper who stands on their head? I mean, and that is what we saw. But with all the great things their goalkeeper was doing in the 95th minute at the death, sending everyone forward, and a member of the old guard will say in Otis Anderson just kind of casually keeps himself part of the play on a last-second corner kick that went over his head the first time, but the ball played back in. And the only mistake of the night their goalkeeper made was getting screened by his own defender, and Otis Anderson pops up back post with the header. We equalize. We get 1 point.
Yeah. I mean, was that our cleanest performance? No. But in the end, you like the fight, right? You go down and you fight for the entirety of the second half. Nobody gave up. And it was, like you said, kind of an old guard guy, a veteran, a guy that's already been through school and had a really successful career at Gustavus that came up as the hero. We saw some really good moments, John, from players who haven't been regular starters, and they kept their composure under real pressure. And if this Minnesota Super Cup is going to mean anything to Minneapolis City, I think it should test the team, right? It shouldn't be it shouldn't be kind of an off game for everybody in between a tough USL2 schedule. So I'm happy that we had to struggle. I'm happy that we had to fight. I'm less happy that we only got 1 point out of it, but in the end, it was exciting in the end.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Excuse me, it was very exciting in the end. And, I was saying I don't know who I was talking to. I talked to so many people after those games. But I said, like, in the past, that's a 1-0 loss for Minneapolis City.
100%.
Like, just it feels like that, right? That, like, in the past, we would have not been able to persevere through something like that, something like we had the night before. But this season feels a little bit different, Nate. And we've had a lot of draws so far, but maybe those were losses in the previous seasons.
Those were definitely losses last year, John. And then midweek, another road trip, came the redemption. On the road at the Chicago City Dutch Lions, Minneapolis City snatched all 3 points with a late winner to seal a 2-1 win.
So we're talking about things of the past. We talk about familiarity with non-professional soccer, and we always see the rubber match being the one where we either feel we can take points or we get the points taken from us. I know that's very cliche to say because that's how soccer is, but like we always see, like it's always a different story when you play a team at our level in a division the second time through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
they make the adjustments.
Like adjustments are made, like just general smart soccer thinking about how to approach a match always happens for both sides. And that's usually where we've been caught, is those second times around. Outside of the NPSL era, I would say like it was very rare that we would ever roll into like a Duluth or a Med City and lose the second game to them, where maybe they snatched points on us in the first game. But we'd see those weird ones against like Sioux Falls Thunder. We'd go up there and we'd beat them 5-0 at home, and then we'd go up there and it'd be a 1-0, slugfest. But it was a huge response, especially given it was another come from behind effort fueled by some key bench players, and was one of those ones that you feel like you're on the edge of your seat, and it could be the edge of your disaster seat if you're really not putting forth all that effort. But the boys gutted it out.
Yeah, and who went to Chicago? Another quick, like, you get a road trip on Friday that sucked. Tough game on Saturday. Back on the road on Wednesday. It's Daniel Sessler in goal. It's a center back trio of one center back really in Curtis Wagner, and then we had Andrew Holmes deputized to start at center back, and Jake Swallen deputized to start at center back, which says a lot to the flexibility of both of those defensive midfielder players. And then in the midfield, you had the three of Jackson Kirsch, Ian Shaw, and Misael Harris. And your wingers, as usual, Heckenlabel and Olsen. And the strikers up top were Highfield and Kipnusu. So strong squad, just like a little iffy on the back line, some guys out of position. And then on the bench, Jack Roach, Nolan Meyer. Never a good sign when you're traveling with two keepers, by the way. Adam Senna, Sullivan Twill making his first trip with the club this season. Elijah Fearing, who we'll talk about in a second, and Tomas Mena, who also deserves some credit in this game. And it felt like, John, the Dutch Lions, I noticed their roster was much evolved from the last time we saw them, like a week and a half ago.
Well, they only had 4 subs.
Yeah. Yep.
And 2 of those were goalkeepers also, by the way, when they played.
Yep. But this time they've got tons of Division I players that had shown up and were ready to play. And they took a lesson from their earlier loss to us. And right out of the gate, they kept plenty of men behind the ball. And this time they were able to attack more aggressively because of their upgrades that they'd made as the season had gone on. Upgrades that I would say meant that more than whoever their number 7 was, Lane or something like that, we're able to be threatening against, like I already mentioned, is kind of a makeshift City backline.
I thought overall, I know Coach Oliver said the Sueño game was our best performance. I thought this one was top to bottom.
Okay.
Sessler, scoreline wise, obviously you look at a goal, but it was a penalty, and I didn't see anything in the penalty. But he didn't face many shots, and the ones he did, he made really spectacular saves on, along with the routine saves. But that makeshift backline, I won't even really call it that. I'll just call it an alternative backline, because they played really, really well together. Yeah. And I mean, there were some instances where, Holmes and Wagner were kind of caught out on islands by themselves and defended really, really well. And then Swollen was kind of just like a second defensive center midfielder. He kind of pressed himself up a little bit in front of his partners to be on the ball a little bit more, which if you can get Swollen on the ball a little bit more, that's a good day for Minneapolis City, because of what he can do with it. So I think that was great. And then everyone in front, including the players that were able to come on and make a difference, I thought it was great. But the back line held it down, like I said. Unfortunately, that there's that questionable call where Andrew Holmes was called for a penalty and ultimately given a yellow card in the 64th minute. But that penalty, it wasn't doom or gloom, I don't think. Like, once it went in, it wasn't like, oh shit, here it goes again. It was suddenly kind of like, it was the spark our team needed. And then all of a sudden, ball was on the deck. We were moving it around. We were creating chances, and we started to actually take the game over. And luckily we had some time to do it still.
Yeah. And once again, John, it was the late substitutes that really helped add some spark to this game. Just like he did in the Minnesota United game, Elijah Fearing made himself really dangerous on the right wing in the attack. I think in that MNUFC game, Fearing probably could have had a hat trick if it weren't for the heroics of that keeper. And he continued that trend away at Chicago. He controlled a nice cross off his chest. He totally baited his defender into an absolutely embarrassing mistake. I think the guy hit the deck like it was like he thought the ball was in a totally different time zone than Elijah had it, and he earned and Elijah tripped over him and earned himself a penalty. So it was Jackson Kirsch who steps up and converts, true to your philosophy that if you draw a penalty, you should not take the kick.
Yes, never.
Yep. And we're in business. It's 1-1. But it was Joe Highfield who connected with Ian Shaw that put the Crows up top late. John, I noticed that the Dutch Lions had been collapsing on our big forwards all night. I think they learned their lesson against Preston Kipnusu the first time. Anytime he had the ball, they were swarming him, right? So when Highfield collects the ball with his back to goal, he had a nice outlet in Ian Shaw, because the defender that was probably going to mark Shaw collapsed into Highfield. Highfield found that nice through ball, and Shaw slid right into the space created by the defender's absence. And he rips a quick shot between the legs of the Dutch Lions keeper. Yeah, in the end, it wasn't pretty, but that's Minneapolis City this year, and sometimes that's all you need.
I think he had a great shout out about the way they set up. They definitely, obviously, a lot more defensively than they were the first time they played against us. That usually happens when you get 4 goals pumped in on you. But personnel wise, you also mentioned that where it was different. They had brought more people than they did against us, and a little bit more quality. But I think that your observation is definitely right, that they were collapsing more on our central pairing of up top of Kipnusu and Highfield, and it not only was it giving space to players like Shaw, but Morgan Olsen had a field day, and then Elijah, when he came on, did as well. I also want to mention too that there was a late flurry, I guess you could say, of attack by the Dutch Lions, and it was Tomas Mena who came in and then had to play right center back due to our need in the back line that day, and his effort to stop 3 really, really good chances basically made this a 3-point instead of a 1-point outcome.
Yeah, right at the end there was a really dangerous breakaway down the left side, right? And I actually, John, I didn't realize that Mena was playing center back. I thought he had just tracked all the way back and to get in front of that ball, because it was kind of like 1v1. Really, like whoever was coming down the left side against his defender, and all of a sudden Mena came out of nowhere to block that shot and save what could have been a goal. So props to Mena.
Center back's position was a turnstile. So it started with Holmes, and then it went to Kirsch, and then it went to Mena.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's that says a lot for versatility, right? And I think all season Tomas Mena has shown that he's got that engine and he's got that willingness to do anything he needs to help the team win. And I want to give him all the credit for that.
Absolutely. So, and we had another match, folks. And then if you're counting along with us, following along, that's 4 matches in 7 days. A lot of soccer. It was the second Super Cup Group 1 match against a familiar crew in the St. Paul Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are undefeated currently in the UPSL Premier Division. Potentially they wouldn't be if we were still in it, but they went through 10 games. They were 8 wins and 2 draws in their first 10 games. And we talked about it in the broadcast, they were they scored 24 goals in 10 games and only 6. So that's definitely saying something. And there's quite a few familiar faces that were on that roster. You had Jordan Ross, Chris Franz, you had Drew Mosman in goal, all players that were, and Charles Rent, that were in futures over the winter in City, but obviously decided to have league soccer once the decision was made that we weren't going to be in the UPSL this year. So you had on top of that a stellar prospect in Kazdan Blattman, who goes to McAllister with Nick Kent and Nicky Mena. So there was a lot of familiarity across the board here, whether it be players that were in with the futures or players that play college together.
Yeah, and it was kind of like a futures family reunion, John. When you consider who was on the field for City 2, a few of their UPSL guys came through our development pipeline, like you said.
Oh, Joe Barita, I forgot to mention him too.
Yep. And seeing them in different colors is something that you kind of had to expect when we left the UPSL. But John, my thought going into this was that, like, given all the strain on the players recently, we really couldn't take this one lightly, especially considering how well the Blackhawks have been playing in the UPSL. And that, you know, if we weren't the ones that were going to control the tempo, they were going to make it tough.
Yeah, I thought they set up really, really well. Like they were extremely organized defensively, and we kind of couldn't get anything going. And then they countered so fast. Mm-hmm. And I think they had a 4-3-3 set up when they started, but because we ran a 3-5-2, those outside wingbacks, like you saw someone like Chris Franz, who goes to McAllister with all his other guys, he's typically an attacker. Like usually grew up a central forward, kind of deployed out on the wing with Minneapolis City Futures, and then ultimately with McAllister. He was having to track back and play defense the whole entire half, but he had the engine to be able to switch it on and to be able to counter. I was really impressed with them. I was not expecting what we ended up seeing.
No, me neither. Starters for Minneapolis City were Jack Roach in net. Our defenders' backline was Otis Anderson to start, along with Nick Kent and Jeffrey Richter. Our midfield was Joey Tawa, Ronan Selbo, and Shea Bechtel in the middle, with Elijah Fearing and Ondieka Mena on the wings. Fearing gets the start, probably due to his phenomenal performances off the bench in the previous 2 games.
And Ronan.
And I think in Ronan too. And you had Elijah as the player to watch that game. And then our forwards were Tomas Mena, again, thanks to effort, I'm sure, and Misael Harris. And it's good to have, I think it's good to have Miz up top so we can drift a little wider on the attack versus like sitting in at that 10. I just don't think that's his spot, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
So that was good to see him there. And on the bench, Sessler, Adam Senna, Bernard CB Rule, Andrew Holmes, Joe Highfield, Morgan Olson, and Andrew Heckenlabel. So still some heavy hitters on that bench, John. But City came out of the gates early with an early goal. It didn't feel like we were going to need them. In just the 6th minute, Jeffrey Richter off the volley, able to rip a shot past the Blackhawks keeper, Drew Mosman. I think it was off a set piece, right? And the ball had kind of bounced around the box, and Richter just kind of found himself right place, right time, and didn't leave a doubt, just buried it.
It actually wasn't off a set piece, Dan. It was Richter who stepped in and intercepted a pass on the defensive end and then carried it forward and then continued his run after he made the pass out wide to Mena into the box and ultimately finds the ball. And I think it was Dan on the call said like how composed and smart it was, because the ball did find Richter back post, and he laid the ball off to Mena, who had the shot that that Mosman saved, and then ultimately he got the rebound. So it was like his play, Richter's play from start to
I hadn't, I've seen a lot of Jeffrey Richter as the Augsburg play-by-play guy, and you just haven't seen that kind of a shot from him. So I was so happy and surprised to see that, and it was great for him to show up in a game like this with a big goal. But that lead didn't last long.
No, it did not. 2 minutes later, it was that dangerous Blackhawks counter that saw their danger man, Kasdan Blattman, on a quick transition, kind of win the ball, play it into Jordan Ross, who was their primary striker on the day. He turns and Blattman just continued his run, running right past two City defenders, and Ross found him and he buries it. So then you only have literally 90 seconds plus, give or take a few, to be able to revel in the lead that Richter gave us, and it's 1-1.
Yeah. And even though that 1-1 game lasted through the first half and into the second, it was in the 65th minute that the Blackhawks did it again. I would say, John, very similar looking play. A ball laid off into the middle, and it was Jared Garcia, not Jonah Garcia, but a different Garcia for the Blackhawks. That almost same place, same method, able to just blast it through. And suddenly the Blackhawks had the lead, and we're looking at each other like, what is happening in this game?
Well, what happened is that their off-the-ball movement was very spectacular, in my opinion, during the game, and we just lost track of Garcia, who was just sitting on the top of the box, and it was Blattman again who was on the ball. Who I texted Casey Holman. I was like, if we didn't have this guy on our radar, like what are we even doing? And he's like, yep, there was definite conversations there, but playing with the Blackhawks, totally get it. That's where he's playing. But he was undoing anyone that was in front of him the entire game, in my opinion. And he laid the ball off to Garcia, who was wide open on top of the box. Three Crows just staying there with their hands on their heads after that one went in. And, that was our own fault, I think.
Yeah. So changes were made, right? Time to go to the bench. You get Olsen in, you get Highfield in, you get Heckenlabel in. And it was Joe Highfield that ended up to be the hero, or looked to be the hero, as he is able to convert 2 goals to put the Crows into the lead. The first one was a penalty. I think long ball played forward, and it was Shea Bechtel who was going up for the header, just going up to challenge in the box to try to bring something down, maybe head it back to someone that was a runner, and he was taken down by the keeper. The keeper also on the way down injured one of his own players, so there was a little bit of extra time there.
Weird one.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird one, but ultimately penalty called on Drew Mosman, and it was Joe Highfield that stepped up and buried it. He went right for the camera, John. Did you see that?
I did.
What a shot from Raul, as Highfield aims for the camera lens and gets a nice highlight reel there kind of shot. But Highfield wasn't done.
No, in the 75th minute. So if you're thinking of the goals here, so first half, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 1-1. Then it's 65th minute, 2-1. Then it's 70th minute, 2-2. And then 75th minute, Highfield comes in, great ball, played into him, wheels off the defender, finds the back of the net. And now we're at
3-2.
3-2. And you're thinking at this point, 75 minutes in, and with the substitutions that have come in and made the difference, you're thinking like, let's go get number 4. And it was a situation where it was funny. My parents are in town for Father's Day weekend, and my dad was at the game, and he said like, there's just something about like the guys that started the game in some of the spots, like then these substitutes came on, like why didn't they start? And I had to explain to my dad, like, these are the guys that are normally starting in the USL.
They're so tired. They're so tired, Dad.
They're just tired. A lot of game minutes. And he's like, well, like they're young kids. They can play. Put them in. He was 100% right. You saw the inclusion of Morgan Olsen in the middle, and all of a sudden, Kasdan Blattman wasn't always on the ball. Like we had the ball more, and Morgan is so offensive minded. He was transitioning. He was finding his buddy Joe Highfield consistently with line breaking passes, and all of a sudden we were getting really dangerous. But then
I'd overheard Dan real quick, John. I'd overheard Dan say from the next room, like after that goal from Garcia that put them up 2-1, and he basically said like, "Oh, well, now the Blackhawks can just kind of sit back and defend, right? They don't have to try to stretch the field as they'd been doing. They don't have to make those runs." And it really was those changes, right, to bring Olsen in, to bring Highfield in, that kind of made them have to adjust, and they were not able to sit back.
But here's the thing. They kept with their plan, which was stay compact and composed defensively and then counter. And they countered and are in the 80th minute, and it was a situation where we lost track of runners again. Ball spills out wide. It's Blattman again, beats his man one-on-one. He was winning individual battles all day. Sprays a ball into the middle, and former Minneapolis City player gets us, how many times we've written this script where a former Minneapolis City player kills us? It all started with Martin Brown Jr. playing for Joy Athletic, and then it was a curse. And Jordan Ross pops up with a half scissors kick, and all of a sudden, it's 3-3.
Dude, what a shot. Like, back to net. I don't know what he just put it, basically just like flipped up, like you said, half scissors, half bicycle, whatever it was, just put his foot out there into the air, and it went right in. And that was it, 3-3, 80th minute. Both teams tried to get the winner, but at that point, I think everyone was gassed, man. And that draw means that the Crows do not control their own destiny in this Minnesota Super Cup tournament. With only 2 points, 2 draws, we are through only if there is a winner in the next game, which is Minnesota United versus the Blackhawks. If there's a draw, John, what happens? Does it go to goals scored, goals against?
I think we just go into a turtle shell like our bus did in Chicago. I honestly, I have no idea what the tiebreakers are. It may go into... It can't be goals for, goals against. So there's that. It can't be head to head because there's all the draws. I do believe it might be like home goals. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. We'll have to look that one up.
Yeah. I mean, if we are through the next round, John, what needs to happen for this team to win, man?
I mean, no disrespect to the players that started that game, but there is I don't want to say extreme. There's an abundance of game-changing players that weren't even in the stadium. Those guys have to be in the stadium, plain and simple. But I don't think there's any other way around it. We went at a very talented team that I think surprised us a little bit with a roster we felt could pump goals in on a UPSL team, and yes, we scored 3, but probably should have done better in my opinion. So I don't want to take away from the hard work that those guys put in because they did play well, but we saw what the substitutions did. So plain and simple, there has to be a different look if you want to be really serious about it. Or on the flip side, it's you look the guys in the eye that didn't perform in the first 65 minutes of that game against the Blackhawks, and you say like, it's yours, go fix it.
Should have defended better, honestly.
They have to go fix it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, 2 goals from basically the same spot, all centered around the same player in Kazdan Blattman. Like, you just got to defend better.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're looking ahead to what is next, it's back to USL 2 action, which essentially is today, as of 27 minutes ago. Happy
Father's Day. Thank you.
Father's Day away trip to face division leaders Rochester FC, who currently sit on top of the Heartland Division. Talk about a juxtaposition. They were 0 for most of the season last year in our conference, and now they sit 4-1. This is a big one, Nate. If we want to make noise in the standings and we want to make the playoffs, we have to show up for that game. So Crow supporters, they've always traveled well to Rochester. If you're listening to this and you haven't made the decision yet, get in the car right now and give Dad what he wants and get the hell out of the house and head on down to Rochester.
Yeah, man, especially after RKC took 3 points off of themselves. Like, the race for the playoff spots in the Heartland is wide open, and we have to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the division, Rochester sits up top. We didn't expect that. Then there's Sueño, and then there's us. And then the two division heavy favorites in River Light and RKC sit below us. So I think this is absolute 1 point at minimum, but I think with the team that I at least saw going down there, it's a very, very strong squad. In our opinion earlier in the show, an ideal squad going down there. I think it's got to be 3 points.
Daddy wants 3 points.
Well, now that I'm not coaching soccer because our tournament got canceled, I had considered going down there, but I kind of got the side eye from the family. Like,
your parents are in town from Milwaukee. You're just like, yo, peace.
Well, no, it'd been like, hey, Dad, you want to go watch like a 6th soccer game in 2 days? I mean, we went to the Loons game tonight. They came to the Super Cup game, and then to take them down there 3 in 3 days, not bad.
Why not?
But that'll do it for this week's show, folks. Big thanks, as always, to our longtime sponsor, footballstadiumprints.com. Hit them up. Go to their site. There's some awesome prints and gear. And don't forget to use that code CROWS10. That's CROWS10 for 10% off everything you order. And reminder, Minneapolis City is a 501c3, so your tickets and your membership isn't just supporting soccer. It's helping a community-focused club that does things the right way. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter X at The People's Pitch, on Instagram, People's Pitch Podcast, or you can email us at mcscpodcast@gmail.com. Why does that always trip us up? It's been on here for like almost 10 years. And you can follow the club everywhere at MPLS City SC. Next week, we'll have a recap of the Rochester FC action, and then plenty of more match action that we can talk about in the future because games aren't going to slow down, Nate.
Yeah, we got a Wednesday night game against St. Croix. We've got, we didn't even preview that. We could have done that. Jeez.
Yeah, maybe we'll get off cadence and preview that one. But until next time, folks, you got hooked.
You got hooked.